surprisingly, all the comments have been positive, which doesn't really mean much, because I don't take the kids' comments too seriously, especially the death threats. But any questions from you're going to come up and present? But any questions about anything that's transpired so far? Come on, Fiddler. Give me a break.
They're common, but not this morning.
They're not this morning.
I'll save it for later.
Okay. One of the benchmarks I use is how much you guys eat. And so I was just talking to the chefs, and this morning, for some reason, you ate more than you ate yesterday morning. I can never figure out how it fluctuates from day 1 to day 3 to day 5. I don't know. Maybe if I could get I don't know what kind of doctor that would be, but you ate more this morning. But some of the groups, not just because they're vegans and stuff like that, because we've had those where there's a lot of dietary requirements, which I always find amusing. And we don't pay attention to the dietary requirements, just so you understand. If you're a fucking no this, no, you get the same food as anybody else. We just tell you. It's okay. If you're not supposed to eat pork, we give you pork. Once in a while, they can actually tell the difference. But most of the time, they can't. Because that's all shite. That's all bullshit. Now, we got in trouble a few years ago because we gave a guy peanuts that had a peanut allergy. Because apparently peanut allergies aren't bullshit. When his face blew up like this. So that's about the only one we're careful with. That's about the only one we're careful with. Otherwise, it's fuck you, you know. If you bring your own food. And we've had a few bring their own food. But by the 3rd or 4th day, they get tired of that and they eat the regular food. But if it wasn't as handy now to get special dietary requirements in the markets, etc., believe me, you wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it. There's an occasional Muslim, but even they break down. You know, and we do have prayer mats for the 5 prayer day guys and gals. We do have prayer mats. But we don't have a consecrated special building. But the chapel is the only consecrated by the Catholic Church outside a Catholic Church in Scotland. So it's actually been consecrated by the Catholic Church, Bill. So, it took me from 1984 to 1995 to get it consecrated. And they would never do it. And then my friend, God rest may he rest in peace, Father John, a Carmelite priest that I've known since I was a kid, he's dead now. He went to the local bishop and he, talked to the shite, whatever he talked. And finally he got it approved, so it got consecrated. But what the Catholic Church was worried about is that I was going to collect money during services. That's the only reason I couldn't get it consecrated, because they thought I was going to be having my hand in their purse. As soon as they found out I wasn't going to collect money, oh, no problem. We'll bless it. And so it's blessed. And the same thing is when, it's not open anymore, but years ago, when we first opened it up for weddings in 2003, we were the first venue that accepted, they weren't marriages and they were unions, same-sex unions, or whatever it's called. So we were the first place. And my neighbors didn't think too highly of that. Well, I don't talk to them anyway, it doesn't really matter. But when I got interviewed by BBC and the news agencies, and they asked me why I did that, and I said, well, why not? I didn't tell them it was a profit mode, that we were the first and the only. So needless to say that we had a lot of business. It was a pretty simple formula. But now we don't do that anymore. Group A. Who's going to give us the Group A? Yes, sir.
Do we do the opposite? Like the presentation's about buying, what we should buy, yes or no?
Give me an example. What you mean?
So I presented yesterday whether to buy these practices or not.
Correct. If you were selling them, you're asking
Now
me.
the opposite, now I want to get rid of dispose and cash in. Same process.
Well, it depends where we are in the cycle. Right now, even though it should be a seller's market, because now for people that have had stuff on the market for years and years and years, there's a higher probability that they're going to be able to get what they were asking because everybody's euphoric about the market. But in down cycles, and everything it's either up or down. Now the current financial bull market around the world has been going on about since 2008 or 9-ish. And so this is the second or third longest running bull stretch that we've had since they've been keeping records. And it may even be the longest now, because it was only a matter of weeks or when it was in second place. So we're at the upper end, but depending where you're on the cycle, you would take the flip side of that. But what you wouldn't do is be a motivated seller to the extent that you are going to take back paper unless you're getting 2 or 3 times more than the business is worth. The motivated seller, if I was a motivated seller, I'd say, if I'm getting all the cash that I think the business is really worth up front, whether that's 20%, 40%, 70%, or 80%, in my heart, then you can pay me the rest over 10, 20, 40 years, whatever, because all that's gravy. And most of the people, if they've got smart advisors, which most people don't, their advisors are saying, okay, they offered me $7 million now and $7 million over 7 years. Let's make it simple. What do you think the business is really worth? 5. It's a no-brainer. I'll take it. Well, you negotiate and you cry and piss and moan and but you take it because every penny or every dollar or every payment or every tranche that they pay you is gravy because the business isn't worth that. It wasn't worth it. And I mean, when you deal in the Middle East, they always ask 3, 4, 5 times more than the business is worth. Always. Like a rug peddler, like a Persian rug peddler, They always ask. By definition, if somebody's asking 100 million, it's worth 6, 7 million. By definition. It's worth 6, 7 million. Yeah, Philip.
Yeah, when you say percent, you mean percent of the sale price?
No. If your business is if somebody offered you $10 million or $7 million now and $7 million, $1 million a year for 7 years, 14 million.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're haggling, you want more than 7 up front. And then you figure, you go in a corner on a piece of paper and, well, what's the business really worth? I says 5.
Right, okay.
You might cry and scream and get them up to 8, 8.5, but I mean, it's still, if the first tranche is more than the business is worth, it's a no-brainer. Now, you may delude yourself or delude your relatives or your cousins or your children or your wife that the business is worth a bunch of money, but that the business isn't worth a shit because you know how to evaluate them now. When I started doing this almost 25 years ago, I said, wrongfully, I'd have to get security guards because they were going to queue up 10 across and 10 miles deep. 10 across, 10 miles, because I was buying, I was buying businesses and showing how, but it didn't work out that way. But and buy businesses for cash for 2 to 5 times EBITDA. That's the other part I left off. 2 to 5 times EBITDA. And most businesses should sell on a valuation of yearly revenue. Like if you're buying a sole proprietor in America, a dentist, an accountant, carpenter, or joiner, as they say, they sell between 0.75 and 1.25 times yearly revenue. Yearly revenue. So if a carpenter does $100,000 a year, you're going to pay him between $75,000 and $125,000 for his business. And depends on how you salami it out, either over time, or very seldom does anybody ever buy anything all up front because the business is the sole proprietor. So if the sole proprietor drops dead or walks out the door, you've got nothing. And but in the old days, pre M&A, you bought a guy's business on, you did $85,000 last year. It was a derivative of the yearly revenue. Not because you know that you're going to run the business differently than he is. You're going to have different kinds of add-ons, add-backs, etc. But the one thing that is universal is how much revenue did you produce? Forget the expenses, because you can always hire somebody to fuck around with the expenses. How much revenue? Because top line is king, and that's why when you see these companies report gains in top line, but not as much gains in bottom line, it's important, but it's not as important as top line. Revenue is king, and that's why most of the time the people that produce the revenue are the highest paid. Because you can find anybody to fucking do, well, this is an exaggeration, QuickBooks or, Bean Counter. And that's why I got paid a lot of money coming up the ladder, because I could always produce a lot of revenue. I never worried about expenses. I still don't. And that's why I tell people, and it comes across poorly because I get a lot of shitty comments about it. I spend 125% of every dollar I made. Unlike Bill here, who tries to spend 12% every dollar he made. Meaning, I spent 25% more than I made because I didn't want to have any plan B, any backup, any savings, anything. I always wanted to have to generate more money the next year. And I haven't done that for a number of years because I'm not in the real revenue generating business anymore. Although I still generate quite a bit of revenue by normal standards. But because revenue is, and I never worried about expenses. I still don't worry about expenses. And I certainly don't worry about taxes. Don't worry about taxes. The things that, as I've been pounding to death, that most of you continue to worry about, and it's like in my ebook, which is one of the mandatory readings for the QLA for Dummies. About halfway through the ebook, I relate a story when I was in Australia, at that big mountain out in the middle of nowhere. What's it called? Yeah, Ayers Rock. And there was two couples sitting there, one couple in their 40s. Yeah, and with two kids, 13 and 16, and then a young couple with no kids, an American couple, and these were Polish or Bulgarian or something who had moved to Australia. And the whole motherfucking dinner was talking about the statutory days off, how many statutory days off they could take. And the young couple was just eating it up. Oh yeah, we switched jobs twice because we get 6 more days here. And these two teenage kids don't have a chance. There's no way humanly possible that those kids can make it, having grown up listening to their parents talk about statutory days and how you could fuck the government in this way, and you could do this, you could do that. And each one of you in this room has had a similar, on a conscious level or a subconscious level, listen to conversations that your parents have had growing up. There's no question about it. It's like if your parents used to collect, not food stamps, but coupons. They still have coupons where you get discounts off food and shit? Yeah. Well, how can you, if you saw your mama, God love her, oh, right there, thank you, collecting coupons growing up.
Rebate.
What's a rebate? What's it?
Yeah, rebate. Like there's 50 cents off gas.
Yeah. How do you not think that resonates? You're lucky you're any place. And in Scotland, it's one of the worst places in the world. They'll spend $3 on petrol to save 80 pence. Literally. And they don't think about, not 3 pounds. I mean, they'll spend 3 pounds on gasoline to save 80 pence. And nobody thinks about It's unbelievable. And it's in their DNA. And they make fun of it here like it's in our DNA. It's sad. It's why Scotland is fucked. And it was 5 million people when I got here 37 years ago. There's still 5 million people. Anybody's got any brains leaves. If you haven't left by the time you're 25, you're fucked. You got no chance. None. And there are places in the United States like that. Coupons. My mom's collected coupons. There used to be a coupon on, when I was a kid, bag of potato chips, crisps, this big, used to cost 69 cents. Big bag. But you could get a coupon where they only cost 49 cents. I went to a high-profile seminar I spoke at 20 years ago in San Diego, and you got $19 off the room, the $300 room or $200 room, but you had to stand in this big fucking long queue line. And these were ostensibly big hitters. That line went out the lobby, wrapped over to the restaurant, and back to save 19 motherfucking dollars. And now guys like Graham would say, a penny saved is a penny earned. And it was the first thing, they asked me two questions. The first thing I commented on was that, and then the second, they said, what's the biggest marketing mistake you ever made? I said, coming to this motherfucker. And I was a keynote speaker. And then about 20 minutes later, the IRS and FTA raided the place because they were looking for Wade Cook. They were trying to arrest Wade Cook. And I happened to get out without a camera seeing me. I mean, and I knew I shouldn't have gone to that son of a bitch. Biggest marketing mistake is me showing up there. Okay, so no questions? Okay, Ravi, come on up. Go ahead. Tell us what the scam is. I mean your deal. Oh, by the way, a couple of my property, in fact, I think one of the guys that you went and you met, the guys down in London.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
They sent me their newsletter. Not just me, I mean, they sent it to, I guess everybody. But they've done quite a few deals this year. They've done well. Okay.
This is in the joinery business. So
That's carpenters for the people that don't know what a joiner is.
carpentry.
Yeah.
So the 2015, 2016, the turnover was 2015 was 468k, and 2016 was 320k. The vendor or the seller is extremely distressed. He's in the
Other than his top line has dropped 40%.
yeah, and the
Additional stress.
The reason being is he's going partially blind.
A joiner can't see. Now that's rich.
Yeah.
That's no bullshit. That's for real.
Well, his doctors actually said the sawdust. He's allergic to sawdust.
Well, what about hitting his thumb? He can't hit the nails on. Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, the owner doesn't do any joinery work.
Okay.
He owns the business, but he just can't come into work because of the sawdust. That's causing him some health issues. Being in the sort of building trade as well, he collects a lot of cash. So a lot of the jobs that we found